I want to break up with my girlfriend who was assaulted. I am thinking about ending things with my girlfriend, and I know that is going to make me sound like a terrible person. I am sure plenty of people will judge me for this, but I need to get it off my chest, and maybe hearing different perspectives will help. This is going to be long because I do not know what to leave out, and, honestly, I need to let it all out. A little over a year ago, my girlfriend was attacked on her way out of work. The man who did it threatened her with a weapon, but at least she survived. Thankfully, the store she worked at had security cameras in the parking lot, and the bank across the street managed to capture his car on their footage. Because of that, the police were able to track him down within a day. With the video evidence and the DNA test results, he did not even try to deny it. He just pleaded guilty in exchange for avoiding the maximum sentence. Since a weapon was involved, the judge gave him 20 years, though with good behavior, he could be out in about 10 years. I am telling you all this to make one thing clear: he is locked up. He is not a threat to her anymore, not for at least a decade. But the damage was done. That night changed her forever. It changed me too. I was not the one who was hurt, but I felt like my world collapsed right along with hers. I have been dealing with waves of depression, knowing that when she needed protection the most, I was not there. I could not stop what happened, and that thought alone has torn me apart. At first, she would not see me. I understood that. It hurt, but I got it. Her parents picked her up from the hospital, and for a full week, I did not hear a word from her. I knew she needed time, but it stung that she could not even send me a message letting me know she was alright. After 7 days, her sister finally called and told me she was staying with her parents and would reach out to me soon. She never did. Instead, her sister sent another text, saying she wanted to talk and that I should come over. When I got to her parents' house, her mother answered the door. She looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was someone who needed to be handled carefully. Before I could even step inside, she started telling me how I was expected to behave, what I should and should not say. She also made it clear that I was not allowed to touch her, not even a hug. I could tell they had all been told what to do by some therapist or counselor. So, I played along. I walked into the living room, and there she was, sitting on a chair. Her father stood next to her. Her sister was on the couch. The whole setup felt so unnatural, like I was walking into some kind of staged event. Before I could even say anything, her sister started talking for her, saying my girlfriend wanted me to know she was okay but that she was still processing everything. She never spoke to me directly. She barely even looked at me. That was our first interaction after everything, and it was probably one of the most awkward moments of my life. I left feeling like I was on the outside of something I did not understand, like I was supposed to be there for her, but I was not actually allowed in. Back home, I started researching. I looked up everything I could find about how to support someone who had gone through what she had. I wanted to understand. Meanwhile, she started therapy. At first, she went twice a week, then, after a couple of months, she cut back to once a week. During that time, she finally reached out and asked to meet at a coffee shop. When I got there, she was already waiting. She looked like herself, but at the same time, she did not. She was heavily medicated, and it was like talking to someone who was only half awake. No emotion, just a flat, mechanical tone. She told me she could not be in a relationship right now, that she needed time to work through things. Of course, I told her I understood. At that point, I had already accepted that this was how things were going to be for a while. I promised her I would be there for her, in whatever way she needed, whether that meant space or support. I started to tell her that I loved her, but she stopped me. She said she was not ready to hear that and that I needed to respect that. That stung. A lot. But I did what she asked. The next day, she started texting me. Just small things, nothing major. But it felt like a step in the right direction, like maybe we were making progress. This went on for about a month and a half. Then I asked if we could meet for dinner. She took 2 days to respond and finally said she needed to talk to her therapist first. Eventually, she agreed but set the date for a month later. At this point, it had been nearly 4 months since the attack, and I had seen her in person twice, once in that weird meeting with her family and once at the coffee shop. And you know what? Nobody was telling me anything. I was not getting any updates on how she was doing in therapy. I get it, I am not family, I am not entitled to anything, but it would have been nice to know if she was doing better or worse. The night we were supposed to meet for dinner, I got there early. I waited for half an hour before texting her to see what was going on. All she sent back was, "On my way." When she finally arrived, I asked how she had been. She snapped at me, told me not to ask her personal questions. That dinner was one of the most miserable experiences of my life. I wanted to talk, to reconnect, but when she finished eating, she just said she was ready to go home. I asked if she could stay for a little while longer, just to talk, but I could see she was getting anxious. I did not want to upset her, so I just told her I loved her and missed her. She got up and walked away. The next day, she texted me again like nothing had happened. We started meeting for lunch once a week. She seemed more comfortable being out in public, and she even told me about her new job. That went on for another 4 months. And I tried. I really did. But I was lonely. We had not even held hands since everything happened. Then one day, she did not show up for lunch. I texted her. No reply. I called her parents to see if she was alright. They gave me the runaround, and I started getting frustrated. I did not need to know where she was, I just wanted to know she was safe. After pushing for an answer, her mother finally said, "She is okay, but do not expect to hear from her for a while." That sent me into a spiral. Was she in the hospital? Did she have some kind of setback? But what could I do? I went home and tried to keep myself busy. 2 weeks went by. Nothing. I finally called her sister and flat out asked if she was even alive. She sighed and told me she was sorry but that my girlfriend had specifically told them not to let me talk to her. That broke me. I did not push her. I did not pressure her. All I ever did was try to be there for her. And then, out of nowhere, she texts me. She wants me to meet her at an address I do not recognize. I look it up, and it is a therapist's office. I show up, check in at the front desk, and the therapist comes out to speak with me first. She gives me a list of rules, what to say, what not to say. Then she tells me my girlfriend has something to tell me. I walk in. My girlfriend is sitting there, crying, holding a box of tissues. And then she tells me that the reason she missed lunch was because she was with another guy. A guy from her new job. And they had slept together. It felt like a bullet to the chest. The therapist started saying something about her reclaiming her body and how this was not cheating in the traditional sense. I looked at her and said, "You have not even held my hand in the past 6 months, but you can sleep with some guy from work while I sit around like a fool waiting for you?" She started sobbing. The therapist told me to leave. I walked out the door. I got that text later that day. Now she is all chatty like nothing happened, telling me this was the biggest mistake of her life, begging me to talk to her. I did not know how to respond. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to try to understand, but the other part of me was just exhausted. Still, I agreed to meet her. When I saw her, I did not sugarcoat anything. I told her straight up, if we were going to move forward, that guy had to be out of the picture. No contact, no excuses. She hesitated, then told me that was not possible because they worked together. I shook my head and said, "Then I am sorry, but I cannot do this." That was it for me. I was not going to sit around, knowing she was seeing him every single day. A few days later, she told me she had put in her notice and was looking for another job. I talked to my sister about everything, and she tried to help me make sense of it. She told me that, sometimes, women who go through something like this seek out intimacy as a way to regain control over their bodies, to feel like they are making the choice. Maybe that is what she was doing, maybe not. But the part that kept eating at me was, why not me? If that was really the case, why was I still on the outside? She changed jobs, and we went back to our routine. Meeting for lunch, small talk, pretending things were normal when they clearly were not. After a couple of weeks, I told her I was getting tired of this. Lunch dates and surface-level conversations were not cutting it anymore. I wanted more, or at least something that felt like a relationship again. She agreed to come over to watch a movie. That brings us to tonight. She showed up, and we ordered pizza. We watched one movie, then another. The whole time, I kept thinking, maybe this is finally the night we start moving forward. Not in some big dramatic way, but at least in a way that made me feel like I was still her boyfriend. At some point during the second movie, I leaned in to kiss her, nothing more, just a kiss. She pulled back like I had burned her. Told me she was not ready for that yet. I wish I could say I handled it gracefully, but I did not. I let out this short, bitter laugh, and before I could stop myself, I said, "It has been over a year. A year and a month, actually. I have not pushed you, I have not asked for anything, I have not tried a single thing. And yet, you had no problem being with some other guy months ago, and I am still waiting just to hold your damn hand." She started crying. Normally, I would have apologized immediately, reassured her, told her I did not mean it like that. But this time, I did not. I was too tired. Too drained. I took a breath, lowered my voice, and told her, "Look, I would never pressure you into anything, and I am not trying to guilt you. But I feel like I have been standing outside in the cold, watching through a window while you live your life. And then, one day, you just walked into another man's arms while I was still standing there, waiting. I have tried to be patient. I have tried to be supportive. But I feel like I am the one being punished for something I did not do." She kept crying, and I just sat there, staring at the TV, not knowing what else to say. Finally, I told her, "I think I need time to figure out what I want. So, do not text me until I reach out to you. I do not know how long that will be, or if I will at all." She nodded, wiped her eyes, and left. And now I am here, sitting in my apartment, staring at my phone, wondering if I did the right thing. This is the part where, if you did not think I was a jerk before, you definitely will now. I miss intimacy. Not just sex, though, yes, that too, but everything. Holding hands, kissing, feeling like I am wanted. I knew things would be hard after what happened, but I never thought we would still be like this over a year later. And the worst part? Knowing she gave that part of herself to someone else, while I have spent all this time waiting, hoping she would come back to me. I do not know if I can do this anymore. Even if she shows up tomorrow and suddenly wants to be close again, it will not feel real. It will feel like guilt, or pity, or some last-ditch effort to hold on to me. And yet, if I walk away, it will feel like I am punishing her for something that was never her fault. I hate the man who did this to her. He ruined her life. He ruined our life. And now, no matter what I do, I feel like the bad guy. I told her I would think things through and talk to her next week. But honestly? Right now, I think I am done. I love her. I just do not know if that is enough anymore. Advice?